Hello and welcome to part 3 of my little card review thing for the Grand Tournament before the expansion has actually come out for Hearthstone. I am reviewing all the cards, kind of, not really. This time we've got a lot more cards. I'm trying to mix up how I record these things, so let me know if you notice any big differences. On screen right now there should be the list of cards. There are 2 more that I still have to add to my list because they were just recently announced, so hopefully that's all set up properly. Pick which one you want and I will talk about them once you've clicked on it. So the first one is a Noob Arak. It's a rogue only 9 mana 8/4, which is not the best. However, Death Rattle, return this to your hand and summon a 4/4 Nerubian. The 4/4 Nerubian, I would assume, is the same from the Nerubian Egg. And if it's not, then whatever. Still a 4/4 creature, pretty strong. So think of this as a base mana 8/4 4/4 for 9 mana. And you're like, okay, you know what? That's actually kind of okay. It's really slow, but it's okay in value. The fact that this returns to your hand is actually a big deal because it basically means that a rogue is never really out of steam. And you might say, well, why would they ever be out of steam? They have Sprint. They have Fan of Knives. They can put in card draw if they want to. There's plenty of decent minions in the neutral deck that's card draw. And the thing you have to realize is that they don't necessarily... They might have card draw. They don't really have late game cards, if that makes sense. They don't have cards that are bigger than, the 6/6 Ogre thing. In terms of minion quality... It's very much capped out at around 6 attack, and I think there's that 8 health creature, the Gallywigs. So it gives them late game options, and it pushes the control deck, which is what a lot of the control cards we're seeing seem to be pushing. It's hard to really say until people put them into action if they will amount to a control deck, but that's where it looks like it's going. So cool card, I like it. Aviana. This card scares me. Straight up. Everyone is telling me that this card is bad. Here's the thing. 9 mana 5/5, your minions cost 1. Your minions costing 1, if this lives a turn, it's basically GG. In theory, you could play 10 things for 1 mana. It's look at Wilfred Fizzlebang, right? The reason I say Wilfred Fizzlebang isn't that good is because it's incredibly inconsistent. Aviana is so much more consistent because you know what's in your hand. You know what you can play when you play Aviana. In fact, it's the perfect amount of mana that you can even put it behind a taunt. You can put it behind a Sledge Belcher, something that can protect it, which is important because if you can successfully protect this card, Druids have a lot of... Think of the natural Druid hand. There's a lot of big cards. There's some pretty decent card draw. This card, in my opinion, is insane. And if you see this thing on 9 mana, and your board is empty, you might have trouble, because how many ways do you think there are going to be to clear this guy? There's Prius Shadow Word Death, right? It doesn't die to BGH, it doesn't die to Swipe or True Silver, or it dies to Explosive Shot, which is the Hunter 5 mana, deal 5 damage, and 2 mana to adjacent, which I feel like is going to be a big deal soon. But in my opinion, this card's insane. Understand that now, this card is going to be a big deal. It'll be interesting to see how big of a deal, but as a lot of these cards that we're seeing push us much later game, push control decks and stuff, at least when the game starts off, you're going to see this card be absolutely insane. It's going to be fun, but it's going to be insane. Adric the Pure. 7 mana 3/7 battle cry, change all enemy minions to attack. Enemy minions attack to 1. So, in my opinion, 7 mana 3/7's kind of meh, but the battle cry is just as meh, which confuses me a little bit. Here's the thing about changing all the enemy minions to attack to 1. Unless you're getting 4 or 5 creatures, it's really not worth it in terms of raw value, and it could be fun to functionally wipe a board in a weird way. You're making the entire enemy board completely useless, but if it's a big enough board, they can probably just kill Adric the Pure. And obviously if you have death rattles and all that weird stuff, you can probably silence this effect off. It's interesting. I'm not gonna say it's a useless card, but overall I think it's a weak card. It can have its applications if you're losing, but if you're losing board, I don't know if the 3/7 body is definitely what you want. I just think it's kind of weak, honestly. Like, the effect is so meh. Like, I imagine you play this and it hits 3 creatures, that's about as good as it gets, right? And then your opponent plays something else and you're like, oh, shoot. And like, the 3 creatures you hit will probably have like 3, 4, and 2 attack anyways. So we'll see how it turns out. I'm not expecting much. Grand Crusader. This is a fun one. 6 mana, 5/5, add a random paladin card to your hand. So 6 mana, we expect a 6/7, right? Based on raw stat value. And for the battle cry, draw a card is apparently valued at 1 mana, or 1.5 mana, because, 2 stats is 1 mana traditionally. So basically it's 6 mana, 5/5, draw a card, but then it's like paladin card. And I have no idea what to think of it. The only thing I thought of when I was looking at it was maybe because they want to show off some of the more undervalued paladin cards, like the 2 mana spell that heals for 6 health. The secrets, paladin secrets are actually really strong for 1 mana, in my opinion. And you kind of have to play around all of them if you see a paladin secret coming out of Grand Crusader. The thing is, paladins do have a little bit of synergy, but not enough that this is a bad card. It's a solid card that's functionally like a 6 mana draw card, right? And it's cool to have late game draw cards like that. So I'm interested and cautiously optimistic, kind of. It's probably a good card. It looks interesting, but it's hard to really make use of it in any way. Like, people are trying to talk about cheesy scenarios, and I'm not expecting much of that. Master Jouster. Battlecry, reveal a minion in each deck. If yours costs more, gain Taunt and Divine Shield. So this is a fairly straightforward value card. And you're going to see a lot of minions with this, with the reveal a minion in each deck with this value mechanic that pushes late game cards. You'll see this specifically in Paladin, because Paladin has a card made for this type of play. It's an interesting mechanic that pushes late game decks. I don't know how consistent it'll be, and that's my main concern, is that if you can't get the Taunt and Divine Shield consistently, the minion's kind of meh. Actually, it's a pretty good minion. 6 mana, 5/6, like, yeah, sure, why not? 5/6 is still pretty good on the board, even if you can't get the battle cry off. I don't know, it'll be strong. At the very least, I think it'll be pretty strong. Cool card, solid. The Skeleton King. 6 mana, 7/4. Bit weirder in stats. However, reveal a minion in each deck. If yours costs more, return this to your hand. Now we're starting to see a lot of these. Your minion costs more, not the minion costing more, but return this to your hand. There's starting to be a lot of ways to refuel your hand. And by hand I mean deck. This is a card that means that you never really run out of steam. Unless you run out of cards, in which case you do run out of steam automatically, I believe. I believe the mechanic works that if both people are revealing a minion in their deck and you don't reveal a minion, you lose automatically. And ties don't count, apparently. So generally the mechanic sort of favors you losing because of that. But still, the power of a minion that's constantly coming back to your hand could be insane in a controlled match where you're constantly trying to play stuff and you really, really don't want to run out of cards, right? So this could be really good. I can actually see this with Malorn, funnily enough. That'd be a really funny combo. You'd always have Malorn in your deck, and you can always have Skeleton Knight. That's pretty funny. I don't have Malorn, but if I ever get Malorn or Skeleton King, I'll try and craft it and see how that works. So yeah, cool card, weird concept. Don't know how consistent it'll be. Not gonna try and judge it off that. Moopless Champion, 5 mana, 4/3. Ugh, wow, that's not great stats. Is it 3 mana at 5? When you play a 5 mana card with 3 health, You're expecting it to die, basically. So maybe it'd be better to think of it as 5 mana, 5/4... Oh, wait. Oh, I evaluated this wrong. This is a 5 mana, 4/3 no matter what. Because at 7 mana, I was thinking maybe you could try and get the Inspire effect off. I will say this in the card's defense. Firstly, I think it's a bad card. However, it's at 5 mana, which is good for an Inspire card, because that is right after Maiden of the Lake drops. The problem is, it doesn't really work out because you would need a coin or something to use your hero power. So maybe the ideal cost for a card with Inspire would be 6 mana then, but Maiden of the Lake probably won't survive that long, so it's a weird combination. I think the effect is really powerful, and it's the kind of effect I would want from a card with Inspire, but the cost for trying to get that Inspire effect is just a little bit too much. Like, if this was a 4/4, it might still not be good, which is scary for good Inspire cards, right? Like, how good can you make them? How good can you make the minions before they're just straight up overpowered? That's a question we're going to be seeing a lot as more and more cards get announced, I think. It'll be good to think about Mookless Champion, because right now it seems like a pretty bad card. Just because it won't land on many minions, pretty much. Chouteau Pan Cavalry. This guy's got a cool artwork. 5 mana, 3/7 combo plus 3 attack. Obviously meant to be played in conjunction with like a backstab or something. 5 mana, 6/7's insane, and I expect it to really push Rogue into like one of the top end decks. Like, honestly, this minion is actually insane. Rogue hasn't made use of their combo class thing. Like, they've had combo cards like SI7 Agent, which are insane. They've had Eviscerate, but they've not really had anything since GVG that really works well with the combos. So it's interesting to see a good combo card come out. Now, do we get a better activator than Backstab? Who knows? We'll see. I think it's really strong. I think it's like a really, really strong card, and I wouldn't be surprised if this made Rogues really competitive again. Tuskar Jouster. Whoa, that's a turtle, and it's a hilariously happy turtle. Reveal a minion in each deck. If yours costs more, restore 7 health. 5 mana, 5/5. This card is kind of insane. I say kind of because, wow, at this point, Paladin has a lot of healing. Conditional healing isn't exactly healing you want. Anti-Heal Pot is guaranteed to heal you for 8 health. This card isn't, and that's actually a really big problem because if you roll badly on that die, you might very well lose the game. And sure, there's situations where you're just playing it like a Lotheb or 5 mana 5/5, and the battle cry never comes into question. Great, if you can use it like that, that's probably much better than Heal Pot because you're playing it on turn 5 with board control. And that's actually really interesting to think about because it's a solid 5/5 that sometimes helps you when you're behind. That sounds like a really ideal card to have in any deck. So yeah, I fully expect this to be played a lot. I don't know if it'll take the place of Antique Healbot. I don't even know that Paladins ran Antique Healbot. They ran Lay on Hands, don't they? We'll see how good it is. I personally think it's a really good card. Solid, stat-wise. Deals with a lot of stuff. 5 health is really good. So, yeah, good card. Armored Warhorse. Reveal a minion in each deck. If yours gains more, gain charge. 4 mana, 5 attack charge. Ignore the 3 health. Does anyone remember that 6 mana, 5/6 charge? Because I look at this and I'm like, I would much rather run this than the 6 mana charge. Even if you don't get the charge, right? Like, the effect, the card itself is fine. If you're playing an aggressive deck, 5 mana 5/3 for 4, yeah, sure, why not? You know, I may as well just play Lost Tallst Rider. Actually, Lost Tallst Rider is not really a good card, but I would argue that this is fine without the charge, and with the charge, it's actually insane. So, definitely a minion. Although, I just thought about it a little bit. If your cards cost more, if you're playing an aggressive deck, this isn't actually... Oh god. And it's a beast. What archetype does this fit in? Control Hunter? Not even, because Control Hunter, yeah, they want to kill you, but they probably want to control the board and get some good block and loads off before they want to kill you. Oh god, I'm reserving judgment for this. I argue that it's a good base value card. I'm not sure where this fits anymore. Wow, I got so thrown off, frick. Gormok the Impaler, battle 4 mana 4/4, battle cry if you have at least 4 other minions, deal 4 damage. I think it's a good card. People have been telling me, hey, it's only 4 health, it gets killed by so many other things, Piloted Treader, True Silver, Act. And while that's true, dealing 4 damage is really powerful as an effect. Like, you can kill a Gormok the Impaler with Gormok the Impaler. It's, like, weirdly powerful. It's just trying to get 4 minions on the board is difficult. I would argue it's doable, though, especially with cards like Muster for Battle, Shielded Minibot, Harvest Golem. Like, there are no shortage of sturdy mid-rangey minions. So, put us in, like, mid-range Paladin, put this in, like, the mid-range Shaman that I'm expecting to come out, Priest, sure, and you have a really good tempo card that can really take back the board in a way MC Tech kind of does, but you have more control over it. You have control over having 4 minions on the board, which is really powerful, and so I'm expecting this to actually be really strong. Even though people tell me it sucks, I think it's really good. Bash. Following the slam method of being very simple, deal 3 damage, gain 3 armor, cost 3 mana. Immediately, I thought of a card I actually made, and my card, which I'm not going to name, I'm just going to give the stats, is 3 mana, deal 3 damage, if it kills a minion, gain 5 armor. I was trying to think of an alternative for shield block, and I was thinking of that because control hunters aren't really getting any good cards, and the way to fix that would be to give them more options that give good armor values. I don't know if it's a much more active play than shield block, and the kill a minion aspect was really interesting to me. This is different though. This that we're actually getting is deal 3 damage, gain 3 armor. Less armor than what I would have expected. In fact, I would almost argue it's not a great card at value because deal 3 damage we value at like 1.5 mana. And gain 3 armor, I would argue, would be like 1 mana. So, it's just undervalued, but it's a more active play than the draw card, gain 5 armor. I don't know how good it'll be in how needed that is in Warrior, though. So I don't really expect much out of it. Burglar! Another fun card. Add 2 random cards to your hand from your opponent's class. Rogue already has plenty of good ways to draw cards, so I'm not expecting this to be a big deal. But if you ever wanted to run a full random deck, you can put all of the Ogres, you can put Mogar, you can put Ragnos, Sylvanas, MC Tech, and now Burglar! Burglar is a hilarious card, and so I am going to look for this guy, and if I don't get it, I'm going to craft it, because this card's amazing. Competitively not, no point in it, but hilarious, and I'm going to enjoy every time I play it. Argent Lance, wow, we're working our way down, aren't we? This is technically the last card on my list, but I know there's like another Prius card. Anyways, 2 mana 2/2, a 2 mana 2/2 weapon, battle cry, reveal a minion in each deck for if yours costs more, +1 durability. Again, goes back to the minion aspect. Baseline, it's a good weapon. Now, let's talk about this mechanic. The thing about this mechanic is not just that it's inconsistent, it requires you to build your deck around it, which is interesting, but when you build your deck around a mechanic, you hope it at least works. If you build your deck around spell power, and you don't get the benefit of spell power, that's a problem, because that was the whole reason you got spell power in the first place. If you put in a bunch of late game minions, and then you use this battle cry and you don't get the late game minion, then it's super, super bad, because a lot of your cards are inconsistently good, sometimes inconsistently amazing, and if you don't get that if it's not consistent, this really can only ever be a fun deck. The thing about good decks is that they're consistent. Tempo Mage is always going to run you over at turn 3, you know? Hunter is always going to have around 10 health on you by turn 6 or 7, right? That's consistency lends itself to competitive value. And if you aren't getting that consistency, there's no way for a deck like this to be viable. Now, Secondly, reveal a minion in each deck. That's interesting because it shows what's in the deck. It's like, oh, he has Fire Elemental in the deck, so he can't have more than one in his hand, but that doesn't really matter. It's a weird mechanic. I think we realized with the dragons that showing what your opponent has isn't as valuable as we thought. The knowledge of what's in a deck is interesting, but Hearthstone is such a weird game because of how streams have worked out and because of how the game's evolved on Twitch. There's a lot of net decking going on that you don't normally expect. Yes, people expect that there are certain archetypes that work better than others. When you play against Hunter, you're expecting an aggro or a mid-range, right? But the thing is, before streaming was a thing, those archetypes were much, much harder to find, and you would find much, much more weird decks. Specifically in my experience with Yu-Gi-Oh! And Magic, net decks just weren't as big a deal as they are in Hearthstone. They were there, certainly. They were noticeable in every tournament, but you would see at least 5 or 6 cards dropped between net decks. And so, in Hearthstone, because streaming is such a big deal for the game, net decking is just much more consistent, I guess would be the word. It's much more paper cut. This is the deck. I paid $20 to get 500 dust, so I can get the exact cards I want for this one deck. And that kind of makes me sad. But at the same time, it means this mechanic can run without a lot of issues because revealing a minion isn't really an issue for you. It's like your opponent knows what you're playing. So like that's not a big deal. We learned that during dragon decks. It's just not a big deal to know that your opponent has the dragon in his hand. Oh, I should say something. Final thoughts. So basically, the mechanic is so meh. And I'm really sad about that because it has so much potential, but it needs a different card game, frankly. It needs to be in something that's not so net deck heavy. Like, maybe if you made a group amongst friends, the mechanic's amazing because you don't really know what's in each other's deck. But in the real Hearthstone ranked modes, not gonna be that much of a problem if you reveal a minion from each deck. So yeah, cool mechanic, fun, weird, wacky, I like it. I just don't think it's very good. Alright, now for the hidden one, a card that I wasn't expecting to review, Confuse. Swap the attack and health of all minions, 2 mana priest card. It's weird, and I like it for that. Imagine if you have like... imagine this takes the place of Inner Fire, and just becomes one of those like cards that really turns the game around for priest. I don't think it will, but I think the card effect is amazing and just kind of silly. So we'll see how well it goes, basically. Sorry about that. Basically, the card is silly and hilarious. It's hard to really come up with situations where it'll be good, but I'm sure it can be good because the Mad Scientist can actually be an amazing card 9% of the time. 90% of the time I play it, right? So we'll see how good it is with all minions. I expect a lot of experimentation, a lot of laughs, and then eventually realizing that the card's meh. So yeah, that's my review, part 3. Check out my other reviews, and check out all the cards for yourself at Hearthstone. That'll all be good. There's a link in the description, by the way. Let me know what cards you really enjoyed out of this set. And actually, mainly, let me know what you think about Aviana, the Druid 9 mana 5/5. Because I think it's insane. A lot of people have been telling me otherwise. We'll see how it goes, but I really do think this is going to take over the game, at least for a little bit. And also, like, subscribe. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye!